in Ghana as a Black woman from the United States. I cannot tell y'all how excited I am to be having this conversation today with Jessie Does Travel, because I have been wanting to go to Ghana for so long. It's been on my travel list for such a long time. And to be honest with you, a lot of people will ask me whenever I'm talking about living abroad, moving abroad, a lot of people ask me about places in Africa. And I always tell people, I'm always going to be honest about my own experiences. I'm always going to be honest about places that I have traveled to. And so far in Africa, I've only been to Egypt. There are so many other countries I want to visit in Africa, but I have not gotten there just yet. So to come across someone else who has been living in Ghana for some time, I'm talking about even like building her own home in Ghana. I am just so excited to hear more about her and her experiences. And yeah, I'm excited to have this conversation today. And I also want to point out that I literally just met Jessie in person last month. So some of you know that I did speak at a conference called Move Abroad Con in San Antonio, Texas last month. It was like May 23rd through the 25th. And Jessie was actually a speaker there as well. So she had an entire session on like living abroad in Ghana, or like how to move to Ghana. And then we also both were participants on a panel for being Black and abroad. So I've already had the pleasure of meeting her in person. I've already had the pleasure of learning a little bit about her, but I'm excited to do a lot more of a deep dive today. So like I said, today is really going to be all about what is life like living in Ghana as a Black woman. And if someone does want to move to Ghana, what is their best route? We're going to talk about the best things about living in Ghana. We'll also talk about some of the challenges of living in Ghana, because we know that if I don't give y'all nothing else, I'm going to give y'all the good, the bad, and the ugly, okay? And as soon as Jessie joins, we are going to go ahead and let her in, and we'll start the conversation. And in the meantime, if anybody has any questions about moving abroad, living abroad in general, feel free to drop them in the comments. We'll try to answer as many questions as we can. I see that Jessie just joined, so let's go ahead and I'm excited. Back this up a little bit. There we go. Jessie.
Hey, how are you?
Hello. I'm good. How are you?
Good. This is actually my first co-hosted live on TikTok.
Instagram.
Instagram. Sorry, I'm usually on Instagram and YouTube. So like yeah, this is interesting for
Yeah,
me.
and they're all different, honestly.
Yeah.
Like they're all completely different. But we appreciate you joining. Welcome. Good
Thanks for
morning.
having me.
Of course, of course. So before we kind of dive into all things Ghana, go ahead and tell us a little bit more about you. So who is Jessie Does Travel?
You can call me just Jessie, but if you like you can go ahead to Jessie. I always, when they say introduce myself, I always don't know what to say. I'm just
Relatable.
like, yeah, I'm just like your regular person. Um, I guess the fascinating part for some people is just, that I moved to Ghana a few years ago. But yeah, I mean, if you ask me questions about myself, I think it's even better. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm like your typical person.
Yeah, no, listen, I completely get it. And honestly, I love that introduction, because I think that in this world of social media, sometimes people forget that people on social media are just regular people like everybody else. And we talked a little bit about this at Move Abroad Con, right? Whenever we were on the panel, like broad, but that's kind of the sorry, my car is trying to connect. That's kind of the point of like what we're doing. Like, we want to show people that, hey, we were everyday people who took this big leap, and you can do the same.
Yeah, that's essentially it. Yeah, like
Yeah.
yeah.
So then let's go ahead and get into Ghana. Although you are a little blurry for me, but I think it's me. Hold on. I think I disconnected from the Wi-Fi. Give me 1 second. Okay. All right. There we go. Okay, that's better.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Okay, good. All right. So where are you from, Jesse? Because I don't even think I know this. Where are you from in the U.S.?
So I lived in Miami, New York,
I
Boston.
do remember this. You're from everywhere.
Yeah, but I'm actually Haitian in origin. So I like to make sure I tell that caveat because I noticed one of the things that helped me really integrate into Ghana easily was my Haitian background because there's a lot of
Mm,
similarities. They're on different spectrums of the developing frame, but they have a lot of, and I think any other Caribbean country or any other African country, you're gonna have that like background based knowledge. It's gonna even help you even more with your transition.
yeah. No, that's good to know because as I think a little bit more about dual citizenship, like more and more these days, I just be looking at my West African husband like, all right, listen, whatever, look, what we need to do. I'm like, we together, okay? I'm like, remember
And,
this?
yeah, a lot of people don't know. It's just I think it's always better to have multiple passports, and
Yeah,
if one way doesn't work, the other way doesn't work. I think people in our demographics they're not really used to that type of concept.
yeah.
But I'm telling you, a lot of people in the upper echelons and who are not within our demo, they got like 3, 4 passports: a European
Mm,
passport, a Saint, what is it? Probably a Cayman Islands or something,
yeah,
something. So yeah, you definitely good thing that you're looking into that because it is passport power is important.
yeah. No, I agree, and it's. I think that also just like in our community, a lot of times, like in the Black community in the U.S., even having your regular U.S. passport, like that, for some people, that's like a big thing. Like I know a lot of people who don't even have a passport. My mom is
Yep.
73 years old. She just got her first passport. Like it's 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 why we are having these conversations, right?
Yeah, because honestly, in general, the American population has a low passport rate. It's even lower with Black Americans.
Yeah, yeah,
So yeah, it's important. Get that. Not only get that American passport, but get that other passport. That's gonna give you
yeah.
more freedom.
Yeah, I'm here for it. And speaking of passports, tell us a little bit about your travel journey and like where it started, how it started. Like, how did you even start traveling at all?
So I think I mentioned a bit at the Move Abroad Con. This is my sister from the Move. I love her. I just love her energy. So I did a lot of stuff, y'all, over the last decade. I was finding ways because I was not born with a silver spoon in my mouth, and I want to be very clear about that.
Hmm.
Uh, you know what I'm saying? Uh, I initially, because I knew I didn't have money, I went into working into the airlines so that I could get the flight benefit.
Hmm.
And I get a flight benefit. I took my sister backpacking in Europe. All my family started to travel and stuff like that. And I did that for years while I was in university. And, I just did it until I know at some point I didn't want to stay in the US long
Yeah.
term. I knew that for a long time, long time ago. But I was like, while I'm here, I'm gonna try my best and travel and see other places, see other American cities and things like that. But yeah, that's essentially how I did. And then I started learning other tricks like how to use reward cards and
Yeah.
different like that. So that's the fabulous part about America. America's not we but there's good parts to America, and that's one of those things that you could say like the reward cards. You can actually build a system where you're just buying regular stuff and
Yeah.
you're booking your travel from it. So there's so many different ways that you could do it. I talk about it on my YouTube channel, but I just like I was like I'm gonna figure this out. I don't have money. I don't want a sugar daddy, but I'm gonna find out how I'm gonna do this.
Yes.
And yeah, I did.
No, I love that. Like I am always like one of the things I feel like I'm always screaming at the top of my lungs is that travel is a skill, y'all. Travel is something that you can learn how to do. Nobody is born knowing how to travel. At some point, somebody in their adult life, they have to take that first trip. They have to, and if they, if they aren't traveling on a budget, which y'all know I'm a budget travel girly, okay? Like if you're traveling on a budget, like you can learn how to do these things. Like
Mm-hmm.
we we talk ourselves out of so many things that we want to do because it seems intimidating, it seems impossible, but I'm like it's not. Like it's not impossible if you just decide to figure it out.
Yeah, you're just gonna have to take the time. You're gonna have to try to do the research, but it's possible. And I'm really big on, like I said, the whole sugar daddy thing because I remember when I was in university And I was talking about telling people like I wanted to travel, and they were like, "Oh, girl, just get a sugar daddy." But I was like, no judge for anybody who does that. You know what I'm saying? But for me, it's like I knew I couldn't really do that.
It's not for you.
It's not
It's
for
that.
me.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, I got a brain in my head and 10 toes and 10 fingers. I'll figure out a way to do it. You know. So
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah.
No, 100%. And Jesse, you are still a little bit blurry. If anyone's watching, I don't know if you can confirm if she's blurry for you or not. So I thought it was mine, but I don't think it is. I don't know if you're connected to Wi-Fi. Sometimes if you're on, it helps to turn it off, and then vice versa. But you are still showing up a little blurry for me.
It off.
You said what?
I turned it off.
Okay.
Is
Okay.
it
Yeah, it actually seems a little bit clearer.
okay? All right. Let me know. I'll change it back.
Okay. Okay, yeah, no, I'll let you know. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into Ghana. So earlier you mentioned that you got to a point where you knew that you didn't want to be in the United States permanently. What was that point for you and why?
The point had been that it happened a long time ago. Like me traveling in between then.
Oh wait, hold on, Jesse. Hold on, wait, no, it's worse again. Let's turn the Wi-Fi back on. I'm so sorry.
It
I, yeah, I have no idea why it's blurry, but maybe.
looks
But yeah, I thought it was better, but then when you started talking, it got worse
it got
again.
worse. Okay. All right. How about now? Is it okay now?
Yeah, at least like the words are lining up. Okay, so yeah, tell me again. What was the point when you realized that you did not want to be in the United States for the rest of your life?
Long time ago, like a very long time ago. Like I said, what I did in the airlines was just to buy time while I finished my degree, which was in international relations. So really, maybe some of the earlier points was when I was actually in Haiti as a child, and I realized what they were saying was not all true. Don't get me
Mm-hmm.
wrong, about Haiti, there's definitely truth to it, but it's not holistic. And Africa also suffers from that too, where
Yeah,
there's one idea and it's everywhere. Like
yeah,
it's to the point where if you tell people there's beaches in Haiti, they think that you're like telling some far story, but that's not the case. Obviously the beach does not stop in Dominican
right.
Republic. I don't by the main border. But yeah, that experience really opened my eyes as far as things, and I was like, I don't think America's for me. you know?
Yeah,
Yeah, so don't get me wrong, it's a great opportunity. It's a great place to elevate yourself and do all those different types of things. But it's okay to want something different. And for me, my specialization has been the developing
yeah.
world. Yeah.
I I love that. I love whenever people who live abroad, move abroad, are also willing to admit that there are a lot of great things about the United States, because sometimes I'm like, y'all, we have to be realistic, okay? Do I think the US is the best country in the world? No, I don't. But do I also recognize the privileges and the benefits that come from being a United States citizen? Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think it's another good point about moving abroad or living abroad is like it also doesn't have to be like one and done. Like there are some people who are like, oh, when I move abroad, the US will never see me again. And in my head, I'm like, all right, good luck with that.
Yeah.
But also like at the same time, I'm like, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. Like everyone's journey is different. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be like, oh, this strong hatred in your heart for moving abroad. It really can just be about the fact that you want to live a different life.
Yeah, there's definitely some. I'm not gonna say that there's not issues or things that also help propel me or that I don't like. There's racial issues in America, obviously. I did hate having microaggressions, but I want anybody who's hearing this to take this message away from me and be very clear. No matter which country you go to, there's gonna be a problem
Yeah.
going
Yeah.
to be a problem. You know what I'm saying? Those what I named is just some of America's problems, but not to say that. Let's say you're deciding to go to Switzerland or Zambia, there's gonna be a problem there too.
Yeah.
And now it's up to you to see if it's something that is worth dealing with. In your case, like, is this workable or if it's not workable?
Yeah.
So, but I'm not gonna trash talk America because that's how I got my education, and all those different things like that. I know I got a lot of opportunities because of the blue passport and
Yeah.
different things like that. But does it work for me holistically now? No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm in a place where, I can visit it. My mom is in America. I have a lot of family in America and things like that. I can come and stay for a few months, but I feel happier abroad. So,
Yeah. 100% relatable. And speaking of feeling happier abroad, why Ghana? Because I know you done been around the global block. I know you done been to many other continents. You traveled a lot. So what made you land on Ghana?
so there's different factors. Again, this is not a what I want to say is simple, but it's not simple at the same time. But yeah, so many factors. And yeah, like I said, if you want an extended version, you can go to my YouTube. But let's get the brief version of it. I was studying international. Like I said, I didn't want to be in America. I knew I wanted to be outside of living abroad, exploring different cultures a long time ago. I just was trying to pinpoint which one. And in one of my international business classes, I had to pick a country that I wanted to do business in. And I was like, oh, I'm not going to do Europe. I'm not going to do Asia. I'm not going to do none of that. All my class picked Europe, France, and all of those.
Yeah.
I want to go to a black majority country.
Yeah.
That's where I think I will be the happiest and stuff like that. So when I started looking up the factors, first as a female, because I knew I was going to go by myself. I ain't had no husband, and I didn't really have any intention to get one quick or whatever. So I was like, all right, well, I got to look for safety because that's the reality of being a woman in the world.
Yeah.
Period. Yeah.
Sure.
What I'm saying. So when I looked it up, Ghana was, ranking always in like the top 10 or the top 5, like how we just previously said, having that single narrative could be dangerous, but sometimes some things are true. So there has been coup d'etats in West Africa or in Africa in general. So I had to make sure it was a country where, something like that, the government being taken over or, some like that's not a common thing there. Ghana also was ranking pretty well for that because at the end of the day, if they shut down the airport or they shut down borders and I'm stuck here, while some stuff is going on, like what's going to happen to me when I'm by myself? You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
all the stuff that I thought about. And Ghana was working really good consistently as far as that. Not to say Ghana is like the wealthiest country in Africa. It's not. There's countries like, if you're looking for wealth, you're really looking at like Mauritius, Seychelles. Northern African countries in general have a much higher day-to-day living, GDP and things like that than actually sub-Saharan African countries. But, I just felt like overall for everything that worked for me, could work for me, it was Ghana. So I was like, okay. And then I ended up doing Ghana in 2 different courses that I selected and stuff like that. And I felt really confident in my choice because at that time, it wasn't like Dirty December. It was 2014. So there wasn't like, like there's like a mass of images coming now. It wasn't like, so all I had at that time was statistics. What was the statistics? And, I was looking down and I was like, all right, check the boxes, check the boxes. It's not perfect. Is it perfect? No, but checks the boxes in general. That's my best bet. And that's what I ended up doing.
And so whenever you first went to Ghana, did you know that you were somewhat scouting for a place to live, or were you truly just going there for your course?
Oh no. Okay, and see, my story is long. My story is very long. I like that's why I'm telling you, like, I'll probably skip over some stuff, but that's why, again, you can go look up my YouTube because I sit and kind of like try to pull it apart.
Yeah.
But I actually ended up going to South Africa first. So I went to South Africa. I ended up doing the Peace Corps in South Africa. It did not work out for me. Again, there's a video on that. It did not work out for me. I went through a lot of South Africa is really beautiful, but it's very complex when it comes to racial things as well. So if you're a Black American and you're in racial issues is one of the things that you're fleeing. When you're looking at African countries, if you're looking at South Africa, that's one thing you want to consider because it's pretty obvious and on record how they have a complexity as far as racial issues.
Yeah.
I mean, you hear, what is it, that the boards coming to America? It's complex. It's complex, okay? There's nothing short to say of that. And I see myself as a Pan-Africanist. So I was like, but, I knew what was my original goal, which was Ghana. But it was easier actually for me to go into the Peace Corps because they took care of certain things. I wanted them to cancel some loans for me. I wanted to further my education, so that's why I went into Peace Corps. I actually looked into Peace Corps in Ghana, but I was gonna have to wait. So I went into South Africa because I was like, I don't got time to waste, stuff like that. So yeah, that ended up not working out. And I was like, I need to go back to the original plan. And then I
Yeah.
was like, I'm not sure how I'm gonna do it. I don't got no like safety net like the Peace Corps trying to, do housing and but I'm gonna go back to the original
Yeah.
goal. And then that's what he's doing.
Yeah. And one thing I love the story of how even though you knew that you wanted to go to Ghana because South Africa had its benefits at the time, that you essentially took a detour. And I think that's such a huge part of moving abroad that a lot of people do not consider. One thing I hear from too many people in the US who claim they want to move abroad so badly, like, well, I really, really want to go to Spain, but I don't have enough money for this visa. Oh, well, I really, really want to go to Costa Rica, but I don't qualify for this. And I'm like, okay, well, what's most important to you? Living abroad or living in this one specific country? Because no, no, a lot of times can mean not right
Mm-hmm.
now. So even though you knew you wanted to go to Ghana, I love you pointing out how you decided to be flexible. You were like, you know what? I know that Ghana is where I want to end up, but right now, South Africa, or Peace Corps, South Africa, like this is going to be a transitional period. And I'm sure, like, even though it didn't work out, that overall, I'm saying I'm sure, I assume you don't regret it, because at the end of the day, now it's all part of the
Yeah,
journey.
yeah, I'm gonna be very honest with you. I sat in therapy for a few months after the whole South Africa
Mhm.
debacle. But do I regret it? No, because I think sometimes God uses your story to tell other people or inform
Mm,
people as well who maybe not be as built as tough as you. Because think about it. I have classical training. I have training that shows me how to deal with cultures, cross-cultural management, lead international teams, and stuff like that. And I have life experience where I lived in a developing country. So
mm,
like imagine somebody who is fresh from the US and don't know anything and they experiences this could like, kill them.
yeah,
But for me, like I just kind of was like, I knew that. I knew that could have
yeah,
happened. It
yeah,
happened. Did it feel good? No. But at least now I can tell people like, okay, well, if you South Africa is looking for is what you're looking to do, this is what needs to be what you're looking at. Like, okay, it's infrastructure because like the infrastructure in South Africa is much stronger than in Ghana. So is
yeah,
infrastructure more important to you? Okay, can you overlook, what? Because like South Africa taught me the word xenophobia. I had no idea what that was until I moved to South Africa.
mm,
You know what I'm saying? Like, is like issues with potential issues with xenophobia or racial issues, is that going to be a problem for you? Like, and then you say, what's your non-negotiables and your negotiables, and I can help guide you. Like, I have a friend who he's going to South Africa now from Ghana. And, I'm talking to him about neighborhoods and what to look for and what to avoid and stuff like that. So I think overall, it taught me a lesson that I want to share with the diaspora, which is that when a lot of us are now returning to Africa, whether good intention, not greatest intention, whatever the reason may be, but you need to know that it is a developing continent in a general
yeah,
sense. And healing, there's pains, there's growing pains that come with it, okay?
mm,
And a lot of us are going to come and encounter them when we get to the African continent in different forms in different countries. If you're not ready to face them or not really mentally prepared to handle them, then go and visit. Go to South Africa. You're going to have the most amazing vacation. They have the most beautiful, luxurious, the top of the line vacations. Go and visit, go for maybe a couple of months, but maybe moving is not for you because right now,
mm,
we going to the African continent. I know some people they want to just enjoy. You can do it, but if you're looking at long term, you got to get ready to work because there's work that got to be done on that continent.
mm. Oh my God, there's so many. There's just so much in there. I feel like, first of all, I'm getting goosebumps. Second of all, wait, for the people who do not know, can you please explain more about like diaspora and what that
Oh,
means?
okay, and that is a complexity that I'm actually coming up with in another video about because what I realized is that the locals and the diaspora themselves don't really know the difference. between the diaspora. I'm actually looking to get an advanced degree on diaspora studies. So this is going to be a very like interesting type of thing for me. So diaspora, it can be the Ghanaian diaspora or it could be like the black diaspora. Like let's take Ghana for example, okay? Ghana has its own diaspora. These are people who are born and bred in Ghana and they US and they've been living in the US 10 years or whatever it is, but they're still Ghanaian. They were born in Ghana, but they're still Ghana's diaspora. That's their own diaspora. The diaspora that you're hearing about now is the diaspora is the in general the black diaspora. The diaspora that's not they don't really know which African country they came from because of unfortunately chattel slavery, but they know that they're from the African continent because of their black skin. So that's the diaspora that we're generally referring to when we're talking about the diaspora coming back.
So diaspora in general is about like where you were born. Is that right?
Not really where you were born, because remember what I said, a Ghanaian diaspora is from Ghana, right, but they've gone abroad. People from abroad. In a general sense, diaspora is people who they're from abroad. They're from foreign. Okay. You know, there's that. Okay. But there's the thing like the Ghanaian diaspora, which they're born and from Ghana. They're Ghanaian, but they've gone to Amsterdam. They've gone to Italy. They've gone to the UK. They might sound like you and I because they've developed an American accent. They've assimilated quite a bit, et cetera, et cetera. Then you have the diaspora who they're not nowhere from any African country. They just know that they're from that continent because they're black. Okay, right. That's and like myself, that's the black diaspora. Even though I know like my immediate ancestors are from Haiti, people from Haiti, Jamaica, Barbados, any of the Caribbean islands, you still don't know where you're from in the African continent. Right. Okay. Still, and even though these countries are black majority countries and they feel like, okay, the black nations, they are black nations because they're majority black nations, you still too are a part of the African diaspora. And you still too don't know which African continent, African country you come from. Yeah. So
okay, no,
we're all diaspora, just people outside. We're all diaspora, okay? Think about it like this way. China or Asia, they have their diaspora too. And like in San Francisco, there's a lot of people, maybe they're third generation Chinese, but they don't know, you know, that ancestor or who came like 4 generations ago. But you can see it in their features. They know they're Chinese descent. They're Asian or a Chinese diaspora. You know what I'm saying? Or it might be the person who was born and bred in China and they've moved to San Francisco and that's where they work. They're also a Chinese or an Asian diaspora.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you for elaborating. And we won't talk about South Africa today because we are here to talk about Ghana, but I definitely want to have a future conversation about that. South Africa has been a place that I've wanted to visit since 2020, and obviously it's very controversial in the travel industry. You know, there's a lot of, you know, like and it's a controversial country, right? Like for a good reason. Like I'm not saying that it's not, but I think it's an important conversation to have. And, you know, everyone has their different perspectives, right? Like if there's the people who are like, well, if you're going to go to Africa, don't go to South Africa because that's the whitest part. And it's like, okay, but also it is still part of Africa. And if you are, let's say, for example, you're like a digital nomad and you're like, you do want to go somewhere where, you know, the infrastructure is best, then, you know, at the end of the day, that might be the best option for you. But then if you're black, make sure you understand that, you know, from what I've heard, you know, when you go there, you're going to be able to see these differences. And I think that because you have the experience of being in South Africa, as well as being in, you know, a place like Ghana, I would just, at some other point in time, I would really love to talk about those differences and what people should expect. And even you saying like the importance of visiting because you might not be ready. This is also something else I'm constantly screaming at the top of my lungs. Everybody and their baby mama think they want to live abroad and you ain't been nowhere but Cancun.
And a lot of people are not built for it. I'm going to be very honest with you. And hey, why I caution people about this is because we're in such a fragile state right now. The African continent is now just getting reunited with its diaspora heavily. Before then, I know people like to say, oh, I love this all this while. Let's look at the numbers. People were not traveling in bulk load as they are now to places like Ghana until about, you know, the year of return and all those things like that. Let's look at the statistics. Yeah. You could have appreciated it, but people weren't coming, okay? Now that they are, we're in a fragile state because we've been kept apart for so long. So what's happening during this transition phase is so critical and so key because we're mending like hundreds of years of separation and frivolous reasons and are not going for deeply rooted reasons and not trying to adjust and not trying to do things like that, what's going to happen is that, and I see it all the time, is that there's going to become a friction. There's going to
Yeah.
become a problem. You're gonna get frustrated. You're gonna be like, oh, but the reality is, and I'm gonna be very honest. Nobody told you to go there. So if
Mm.
you do go there and you're saying, you know what I'm saying, and there's gonna be stuff that maybe whatever respective African country you go to, that you might not like. Even in Europe, you're like, why are these people? You know what I'm saying? But you also have to understand that you're also a newcomer there, and you're not going to change everything overnight, and you have to be willing to kind of collaborate
Yeah.
together.
And it's
So
not their job to impress
no,
you.
it's not, you know what I'm saying? Because you could have stayed in America or gone to another country and things like that. But at the same time, too, I want to be very honest with you. It's not going to be daffodils, and there's going to be things that you don't like, and you're entitled, whether you're in America or wherever you go to Asia, that can be true. Two things can be true at once. But right now, we're like in the building phase, and we're unlike Asians, we're unlike Europeans, we're unlike any other demographic where they didn't have to go through something like chattel slavery. There was slavery in all types of demographics, but there was nothing like chattel slavery, like what we've seen in Africa.
Yeah.
And so because we have such a fragile time, we have to be delicate with how we handle each other.
Yeah.
Not everybody's
Yeah.
gonna have that grace. And if you
Mm.
don't have it, that's okay. But you don't have to go and force yourself on the people too. You get what
Exactly.
I'm saying? Go and visit. You're gonna have the greatest time. You want to go and study yourself in this area, you're gonna have the greatest time. You want to go on a top-notch safari in Botswana or Zimbabwe or South Africa, or a city tour in Durban, you're gonna have the greatest time, okay? But it's different when you decide to live there.
Yeah. No, I did yesterday on TikTok. I actually did a live, and I was like, 5 questions to ask yourself before you move abroad. And one of the questions was, are you a Karen? Are you the type of person where you want it when you want it, how you want it, and if not, you're ready to talk to a manager and it has to be this way? If the answer is yes, don't
Yeah.
bother. Do us all a favor. Do yourself a favor. Do that country a favor. Do us all a favor and stay exactly where you are. Just don't.
Yeah, it's very, and you don't have to be a certain demographic to be a Karen. Yeah,
Exactly.
that's what I'm saying. So yeah, it's just, yeah, you just, for me, like I will tell you this: you're gonna have to have a certain level. You don't have to be a diplomat. You're gonna have to have a certain level of diplomacy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I sometimes I even hear about the diaspora versus this, and there's gonna, because like I said, we're two groups that have been separated. There's gonna be a little, you know, a little friction naturally, but you don't want to go in and intentionally create that type of problem. No, not when
Exactly.
we're trying to build and like heal from all these different things. It's not going to
Yeah.
be easy. I want people to understand that. But when you're thinking long term, you're going to have to come to terms with some of these
Yeah.
things. Yeah.
No, 100%. And I'm sure another thing that you can probably agree with, and another question that was on my list yesterday was, how well traveled are you? Because if you have only traveled to resorts, if you have only traveled where you have done cruises, and you think you want to live in DR because you spent 5 days in Punta Cana at the Excellence Resort. And
Totally
I'm
different
like,
life.
that has nothing to do with what your life is going to look like living in DR. If you go somewhere, you do all the tourist things for 10 days and you're like, oh my God, yeah, like, I could live here. Like I tell people there, and I know like it's also a controversial thing because there are some people who are like, well, you shouldn't be telling people not to go after their dreams, and it doesn't mean that they're not going to like it. I'm like, listen, what I'm telling you is, take it from somebody who has traveled, and take it from somebody. Listen, I'm like, y'all, I am bougie, okay? But I tell you right now, travel has made me so humble.
Hmm.
Like travel has made me so grateful. And there are things like I'm embarrassed about some of the things that I have said and thought in the past. about other countries while I was traveling, while I was in the US. Like I'm embarrassed that I've said those things now because I have traveled so much. So it's not even about like, it's not about competition. It's not about, oh, well, you know, you got to go check these boxes. It's just, these are just facts. If you experience other countries on the ground, living like a local, then by default, you are going to have a better appreciation and you're going to be less of a Karen because you're going to be more understanding and you're going to have had these experiences and you're going to know a lot more of what to expect when you go somewhere else.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, a lot of people like you, I've seen that prototype too of people where, you know, they've gone to Royal Caribbean cruise, and a lot of the times they don't know people on the island typically do not live the way that they live in the place that they've curated for them to come and visit and enjoy. You understand what I'm saying? So it doesn't matter what Caribbean island or whatever it is. And, you know, now they feel like, okay, it's given them a lot of courage and strength, and now they want to go in live in, you know, like you're saying, Punta Cana or something like that. And then they realize, you know, after some time, okay, this is a completely different reality. I'm not on vacation anymore.
Yeah.
And that's why I always tell you guys, you know, it's going to even hit harder in a place like on anywhere on the African continent, most places on the African continent, because, you know, in general, the Caribbean is quite developed, with the exception of my place. It's all pretty much developed. And you're going to see those lags and stuff like that, and those are the things that's going to frustrate people. And then that's going to be the thing that's going to, you know, start to have you yelling at locals and stuff like that. And then sometimes that's how they label it, like, oh, Americans, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And then it starts to create a rift and different things like that. And these are the things that we're trying to avoid. We're not telling you that you shouldn't be going anywhere. At the end of the day, you're an adult, it's your money. But we're trying to help advise you, if you want to take the advice, you know, about what is the reality.
Yeah. Yeah. What is the reality? Well, let's talk more about Ghana specifically. So, and I told before you joined, I was talking about how I already had the pleasure of meeting you in person, and Ghana has already been on my travel list. But after talking to you, I am like, oh my God, like I'm like, we moving it up. Like I have to get to Ghana sooner rather than later. But you tell us, what are some of your favorite things about Ghana specifically? Like what makes you so happy with your choice to move from the United States or to live, well, I don't know if you moved straight from the United States to Ghana, but what makes you so happy about your choice to live in Ghana as a Black woman from the U.S.?
Okay, first, I run tours in Ghana as well.
Yes.
So I have to always put that disclaimer. So if you're watching my stuff and you see highlights, those are highlights as well. Okay, so what I want to say is that when I usually bring people to Ghana and they come and see it and they've never been to Ghana, or most of the time they've never been to the African continent, they're like, oh my God, like the shock and the love and the spark. This is really what it's like. And, you know, like I get it all the time. Instantly, they want to move there. Instantly. You know what I'm saying? And for me, I'm lucky. Ghana did align with all the things that I looked, as far as the stats that I was telling you about and what I pictured it to be, the good, the bad, and everything in between. So for me, and I think you probably caught this while I was speaking at the Move Abroad Con. It's just the relaxation of I can just be Black in peace. I can be Black in peace. That's just the reality of it. You know, again, peace was the huge factor. Because, like, I do still actually want to travel and visit Haiti. I do. I want to be I love my country of origin. But because of that issue in the capital, that's the reason one of the things that keep me away. But even if, let's say, everything was all peaceful, just like all the Jamaicans and the Bajans who live in Ghana, I would have lived in Ghana as well. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of Caribbean people in Ghana. You should know that. But yeah, like, it's just like that peace factor. Some other Caribbean islands were saying that they lack that peace factor too. Obviously, probably not as much as my place. You know, but just having that peace. They don't have like a gun violence problem or anything like that. And then now you mix that with the fact that I'm not a minority. I don't have to, you know, worry about those things or how somebody might secretly be interpreting me or anything like that. It's just like, you know,
I love that.
I feel like you should also know it's up to you as a person, because like maybe sometimes stuff that may not be working with the infrastructure, it can frustrate you, or it's frustrated me if I'm being very open. But usually I'm able to navigate it quite easily. And for me, the bigger thing, like I said, is the peace, and I can just be myself. And yeah, that just makes me, that's the biggest thing for me. I'm sorry.
Girl, no, do not be sorry. You're honestly giving me chills over here. It's just, I mean, and I know like in black people who are watching, whether you're watching live or you're, watching a replay, like I know that we know, right? Because we know what the opposite is, right? Like you said, we understand the life of being the minority. We understand the life of the microaggressions. We understand the life of being in a room and wondering how you're being judged
Mhm.
because of your skin color. Understanding having to work twice as hard to maybe get half. Understanding that there's certain things that you can't say or do in certain scenarios because you're going to be perceived in a certain way. And even, things that we talked about at Move BroadCon, right? Like finding hair products. Like y'all, it was so funny on the panel because so
Read
on
all
the
about
panel, Jesse was like the only person who lives in Africa. So a lot of these questions, like Jesse was like, I know these problems. And it's
it.
like
Oh, and I felt so bad because I felt like I didn't want to minimize their situation, because like, they were saying stuff like, oh, they had to go find groups, and when they go to certain places, and I'm like, if I hear of a party, I know who's gonna be at the party, like
yeah.
you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Like,
You already know.
so the hair thing is not a problem. They have local products. They have the shea butters and stuff that they import. Everybody who's doing my hair has the same hair.
Mm.
So like, like it really, in fact, I'm like spoiled for choice when it comes to things
Yeah.
like hair.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So skincare products, I can get local products or internet. They know because we have the same hyperpigmentation and things like that. So stuff like that be the stuff that we talk about, like that it adds into the piece. It's like I don't even have to think about
Yeah.
that. I already know. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so dope. That is so dope. I really just oh man, I'm very again, I'm just you really just got me so hyped to visit this country, this continent, I mean all of it. And I think it's at the end of the day it is a good point to make, right? Like in the United States and in some countries abroad, whenever you are going there as a black person, there are things that you will need to take into consideration. But if you go to a country where black is the majority, these are things that you don't even have to think about them, and that is 100% a whole other level of peace because you're not having the decision fatigue. You're not having the like you said, like going like there's research you don't even need to do. Walk outside your door, boom, there goes somebody to do your hair. Like it's a completely different vibe that I absolutely cannot wait to experience one day.
Yeah, it really is just like, it's a whole nother vibe. Like, yeah.
Yeah. And another thing that I saw on your page, this is the last question I wanted to ask because I did see that you were building a home in Ghana, and that is a question or a topic that I see talked about a lot. Where whether you're renting, buying, like, but just in general, the whole idea of having property abroad, like that to me, like even how casual, like I'm so like Jesse. Honestly, I'm not even trying to get like emotional, but like the fact that you like even listening to you talk about like having multiple passports, like to see black women doing things like this, like to see this, it is such an incredible blessing. Stop, because I will not get emotional. I refuse. But like, so what I wanted to say is that when you like thinking about having property in another country, thinking about having property in the continent of the motherland, like it just I'll put it this way, it's definitely something to strive for. So can you talk a little bit about your journey, like how that's been, what your goal is?
Okay. So firstly, I would have to say that because I've been living in Ghana like going on almost 5 years now, I did not get involved in Ghana real estate for like the first three and a half
Makes sense.
years. Okay. I I've met people, people always call me when they're coming there and stuff like that. And they're like, I'm coming to Ghana, this is the first time, sight unseen, and they're looking for real estate day one. Okay. And that's okay. You could do that. But I want you to be very careful and understanding that I actually have a friend who he bought a condo and he's having so many issues with the purchasing thing. They've given them like 50K, and they still haven't even started building yet. And he's had to the thing I want you to understand is that it can be very lucrative. Ghana actually, in its specific, has one of the highest return on rates of Airbnb and things like that on the continent, especially in West Africa. Okay, but to get there, now that's the challenge. Okay, the system is not like America where there's a better bureau business, better bureau business place or whatever, BBBB, whatever, or the courts are not as streamlined from what I've heard. So if something is to go wrong, like you're going to be going through the gauntlet quite a bit.
Yeah.
The only thing as far as that, if you're looking to do it, I would say find somebody who has done it and then get the referral from them, because you see the house, you see the property, they can tell you what their experiences was. Because like my friend who he's like going through it now, like he just saw their stuff, he's like, oh, it looked good. They're even advertising other places and they still haven't returned the money from his place that is not being built. So you have to be very careful with that. If you care about Ghana, for the people who cares about Ghana presentation, I actually spoke about that because like it's like a gold rush right now in Ghana, and it can be an amazing thing, but you have to do your due diligence. If you don't, you can find a lot of problems. I knew one lady, she was sold swampland, like an 80-year-old woman. She was sold swampland. So you have to know somebody who knows what they're doing. You have to, and they have experience, not just I heard that they have experience. Yeah. But if you make it to that other side, chef's kiss. Chef's kiss is worth it. And it's not like in America where you pay like super high, ultra high taxes and they'll take away your place. It's not really like that, no. So, yeah, it can be a great experience, but you have to understand it's not the same as America.
Yeah.
The process is the same. Another thing too is like people, they are like, okay, the hot thing to do in Ghana is buy land and build that way. Some of y'all are not built for that. You see how we're talking about moving abroad is not for everybody? A lot of y'all not built for that. Y'all hearing that's the thing to do, but some of y'all can't do it. And why you could do what you want, like I say, but why you may want to avoid this is that, like, for example, going back into my degree, cross-cultural management is a skill. People do not work the same way that they work in America everywhere else. It doesn't work like that, okay? And in Ghana, it's different. How people work, the work ethic, it's different. Americans are not going to be able to manage a Ghanaian team, because when you buy land in Ghana, it's really raw. It's not like the U.S. where there might be some underground networks of water. There might be where you're building that. You're building that. You're building the pipe system, you're building the street lights, you're doing that when you buy the land like that, raw like that, okay? Most Americans don't even know how to do that. Then now you're going to have to handle the day-to-day construction and how to manage the team to do it. You understand what I'm saying? And then a lot of people, they're not in Ghana that long. They usually go back to America. Yeah. They can't really watch what's happening. You understand what I'm saying? And if I'm going to be very frank with you, many Ghanaians have a difficult time managing the building of a property like that ground up. Some people feel like it's like, oh, U.S. target. No, everybody. If you're not careful, if you don't know what you're doing, you understand what I'm saying? Because sometimes they say, oh my gosh, so cheap, $2,000 for an acre of land, and then that's what they hear. But they don't look at the complexities and the challenges that they're going to come with it, and they don't really assess if they can realistically do that. So for people like that, I would suggest you could do it, but you can buy, like, let's say a property is already built. So there's no zoning issues. You haven't been sold some crazy land. You see the property, but obviously it's going to be more expensive. But I think in longevity, or looking at in retrospect, it's actually cheaper than trying to day-to-day stuff. Yeah. You understand what I'm saying? So there's so many options and different things like that, but definitely find somebody who's done it and then work backwards from there. Yeah. Okay. I'm always an email away. I like to say that. I might not be able to spend like 20 emails going back and forth because I can barely keep track about the ones I have now. But I'm always an email away just to at least put you in a general good route.
Yeah.
So yeah. Yeah.
No, and we appreciate it. And speaking of, for anyone who is watching and they're like, listen, I want to know more about Ghana. I got questions. I want to know more about these trips. What do you want to plug? Where do you want people to go if they want more information?
You see my Instagram page here, but I'm on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. YouTube, I'm more active on YouTube these days. It's Jessie with a Y does travel.com. And that's my email too, Jessie does travel at gmail.com. So yeah, or you could go to my website. There's time if you want to like really come up with strategic ideas. I have time, you can book there, and stuff like that. But yeah, like a thing I think, and I said this before when we were on the panel, you're gonna need help.
Yeah.
You're gonna need help. This is like, I know, like people are like, oh well, yeah, there's all clarity. I have a business about it, but the prices I charge are very low because I charge like
Yeah.
$50. So it's just kind of like, because otherwise I'll be overwhelmed and I won't be able to do anything else. But even if it's not me, you need some form of consultancy. This is not like moving to, and even in places like Spain or Switzerland, it will be ideal to help, move you along. But those places, they have their infrastructure, they have like a lot of ease, and African nations are more developing. Things are not, it's not like the US where you just go find everything online. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So find some form of consultancy. It will save you a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And headache
And
and mental stress and,
yeah,
and
and
all
headache
that.
and stress. That's what I'm telling you. Like, I'm begging you, even if that's not me, that's fine. But find something that goes with what works for you,
Yeah.
because it's a lot cheaper to spend. Like I said, mine is like 60. Some places is like one something or whatever. It's a lot cheaper to spend. Like, let's say you have consultancy like 3 times and you spend like $300 than spending thousands of dollars to move yourself back to the US after you realize that you can't handle it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I completely agree, y'all. And listen, and understand what is an expense and what is an investment. Just
Yeah.
and also understand the value of your
Yeah.
time, understand the value of your peace and your mental health.
Exactly.
Okay? Yeah.
Exactly.
No, we appreciate it.
Everything I know now, that's from hardcore grinding, being on the ground consistently, day in, day out. You could obviously get all of that knowledge like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, understand what I'm saying? There's a lot of things I wish I could have paid somebody and gotten out of than having to find out on my bum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
So,
I mean, you already know whenever I'm ready to come to Ghana, you already know I'm reaching out. Like,
yeah,
I'm reaching out quick. Jesse.
yeah. That's what, I'm always getting that message. I'm coming, or I need to know about how what should I look for when I'm getting an apartment and what I shouldn't, and blah blah blah. So yeah.
Oh, Jessie, we appreciate it. So, y'all, make sure that you follow Jessie everywhere. Check out her YouTube channel. And if you are serious or even interested about learning more about Ghana, then make sure you book a call with her. Jessie, again, thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate it. I love this conversation so much. It won't be the last because we just have so many things. You
Yeah.
have so many gems to share, and I'm gonna be greedy and ask for more. So,
Yeah, you're welcome. And I enjoy. She made me like almost tear. I just love her. She made me almost tear up, like, because I think like I'm like, okay, I've been pushing, and it did take a lot to get like my passport, but like she made me almost tear up. Like she's like, look, you're getting it, and you're doing this, and she was making me look, like, just like on the panel, you're making me realize some of these things are even bigger than I just kind of like pass it off to see.
Girl, it's so much bigger. It really is. That's why on the days when it be feeling hard, that's what I try to hold on to is like being this representation. It really matters because there are so many people who can't even wrap their brains around this. And like these types of conversations, like people have even told me, like, just thank you. Thank you. So thank you,
Thank
Jesse.
you for having me.
All right, girl. I will talk to you later. Thank you everyone for joining. If you're watching live or the replay, I'll post more about it later. But I will talk to you next time, Jesse. See you later.
All right,
Bye.
bye.